One mutual interest nearly every Elder Scrolls player shares is wearing the title of the Dragonborn proudly. But this wasn't the only demigod that existed throughout Tamriel. Tiber Septim, ruthless founder of the Empire, a symbol of order and unity, roamed Mundus long before the Last Dragonborn was even carved into a figure of limitless power. Most of the player base has always wondered who's intellectually and physically stronger between the two. Both of these individuals will be put through a test determining toughness, vigor, intellectual warfare, and most importantly, finesse. An inactive Dovahkiin turned emperor who formed an unstoppable empire versus a talented Dovahkiin faced with a task of great magnitude. Both of them are insanely potent and capable, but there are always facts that distinguish and highlight one's subtle weaknesses, which gave me the foundation for this video. One ability both Tiber Septim and the Last Dragonborn share is the inborn gift of absorbing the life force of a dragon, or rather devouring a dragon's soul with ease, being one as Ysmir. Although Tiber Septim never had the chance to abuse this ability, and by ability, I mean enjoying a fine meal of spiritual lizard, what he did manage to do is quarrel with various powerful deities that led him down the path of morphing into Talos. Before we start comparing and theorizing about possible strategies and clashes between these two demigods, I'd feel much more assured if we went over their individual lore. Only crucial things that could potentially contribute to later parts of this discussion. Hjalti Earlybeard was one of the first founders under the name of Tiber Septim, and, as more informed Elder Scrolls fans know, Tiber Septim / Talos was actually 3 men, or rather 3 deities. Hjalti was born in Admora under the name Talos. He spent the entirety of his youth in Skyrim, perfecting his gift of the ancient art, the Way of the Voice, alongside chieftains that would cultivate his lust for warfare by instructing him on strategies of war and combat. Hjalti was granted the rank of general to the Colovian estates under King Culhwch after being advised by the Greybeards to seek power somewhere else, more precisely the south, in Cyrodiil. Hjalti's visit to the Greybeards attracted the attention of an influential ghost king, King Wulfarth, a fellow Dragonborn, or rather a Dragonborn of the past. Wulfarth saw this as a ripe opportunity to manage Hjalti's potentially powerful body, mainly so Wulfarth could restart his personal campaign of revenge and hatred towards the Dunmer. Due to his widespread influence amongst soldiers and other more influential magical figures amongst Tamriel, Culhwch's battle mage Zern Arctis caught on and confronted Talos. After learning about Talos' finesse, Zern offered both Wulfarth and Hjalti partnership. It was said that a fierce storm always accompanied General Talos during battle, and this was probably due to Wulfarth's influence throughout Hjalti's life force. Tiber Septim also had the ability to appear at multiple locations due to his unusual allegiance with Wulfarth. After Wulfarth's barbarous attempt at invading Morrowind, Hjalti decided to personally settle matters with Vivec himself, the tribunal god of Morrowind, and surprisingly this led to an armistice, with Zern Arctis acting as a diplomatic figure between humans and elves. The aftermath of this armistice consisted of Wulfarth withdrawing every ounce of his powers from Tiber Septim, leaving only Hjalti and his trusty diplomat to handle matters as they please. Vivec entered the scene with a marvelous present that struck Tiber's eye: the Numidium, a brass god. Even Alinor seemed like a plausible feat with the brass god by his side. And only one thing hindered Tiber Septim from powering this brass god: the soul of a Shezarene. And that's exactly what Wulfarth harbored. After meticulous planning with Zern, Tiber calls for Wulfarth in hopes of trapping him in an especially designed soul gem called the Mantella. With promises of launching another offensive into Morrowind, Wolfarth visits Tiber Septim and bites the trap, making him fling into an episode of unimaginable rage, bringing down Zern with him as well. Wolfarth's Shezarene soul successfully powered the Numidium. The Numidian had an algorithm of its own, and upon getting powered by the Mentella, it reviewed the history of what Talos was. It had prioritized not concerning itself with unnecessary feuds, just focusing on what truly made Talos such a force to be reckoned with. And by Talos, I mean the Talos Legacy, the alliance of three masterminds, coming together to break the limitations of reality, creating illusions powerful enough to achieve what not even an insanely ambitious mortal could do. The Numidium, it brought every single legend about Talos and all of the previously aforementioned stories to reality, infusing Tiber Septim with an extraordinary set of godlike abilities. After the fall of Alinor, or Somerset Isles, Tiber Septim had successfully united most of Tamriel under one empire, which meant unity amongst all. The only path left after all of this was uninterrupted godhood. He achieved Kim and displayed his unbeatable facade, up until his death, 40 years after the occupation of Alinor. The Numidium brought every divine aspect of Talos to reality, leaving a heavy mark on Mundus and its inhabitants alike. Moving on to the Last Dragonborn, a figure loved by many fans, and unlike Tiber Septim's path in life, Elder Scrolls players actually had the chance to carve out the Last Dragonborn's way of life in Skyrim. Freedom of choice to this degree opens up a lot of objective speculation as to how powerful the Last Dragonborn is. Not much aforementioned lore is known about the Last Dragon lore. All we're faced with during the beginning of Skyrim's story is a cheesy quote-unquote prisoner introduction, and not like we've seen that anywhere before, right? There are maybe 2 or 3 pieces of partially credible lore that may give us an insight into his distant past, but nothing major, might I add. Now, I'm fully aware of the approach Bethesda took with character building in Skyrim, by letting the player fully customize their own persona, whichever race or predisposition that might have been. But uniquely, the Last Dragonborn has an already predispositioned facade of his own, whether that be through in-game lore or in real-life game covers. He was always represented as a male Nord with brownish blonde hair and blue eyes, usually wearing sets of iron armor mixed with a studded cuirass, or however you say that. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I don't think any of us can forget that memorable iron helmet from every single game cover and trailer we've seen, mounted upon that sturdy head of his. Moving on to the little bits of pieces and lore we have. During a conversation with Legate Fassendil, stationed in the Rift, the Last Dragonborn might have referred to Cyrodiil as quote-unquote home, indicating the fact that he might originally be from Cyrodiil. The Last Dragonborn might have been recalled back into Apocrypha after defeating Marik, because as Hermaeus Mora once said, if you tire of your search, read your book again to return to your mortal life. For a time. The lure of Apocrypha will call you back. It is your fate. Freya from the Skull tribe in Solstheim advised the Last Dragonborn not to succumb to becoming Hermaeus' servant, simply because of his potential and ambiguous fate. Just like Wolfarth and every other Dragonborn, the Last Dragonborn is probably a Shezarene, an aspect of Lorkhan. During the Last Dragonborn's rise to power in Skyrim, his list of affiliations only grows day by day. This means that every faction currently operating throughout Skyrim could have influenced his growth positively, gifting him various artifacts that could have aided him in his adventures and hunger for knowledge immensely. The Blades, the Companions, the College of Winterhold, the Dawn Guard, the Thieves Guild, the Brotherhood, and the Volkihar clan of vampires, and not to mention both sides of the ongoing civil war. If we take into consideration all of the talents he could have acquired while serving these guilds, we're met with a nearly unstoppable mess of knowledge about the world and its perplexing mysteries. So now that we've gotten lore out of the way, we can safely use all of this information to feed our discussion of which persona might defeat one another in frontline combat, and most importantly, which person could successfully outlast his opponent. Both Tiber Septim and the Last Dragonborn have the inborn gift of absorbing the life force of a dragon, alongside the fact that they're much more durable and sturdy in mostly every other aspect of survivability. The issue here is that Tiber Septim never formally fought a dragon. He never experienced the pleasure of absorbing a dragon's soul, meaning that his initial ability of getting stronger by absorbing souls never even happened, unlike someone else we know. Tiber compensated by honing his inactive power through the Greatbeards, and this way he could gain perception on what it truly meant to be a Dragonborn, and this attracted Wulfarth's attention. Wulfarth's ethereal power as another Shezarene served as the last piece of Hjalti's goal towards unimaginable strength and power. Hjalti and Wulfarth alike bore the title of Ysmir. I mean, every Dragonborn does, but this made them immensely stronger in conjunction. Unlike the Last Dragonborn, who has had his fair share of dragon souls even early on into his journey through Skyrim, and this made him immensely proficient in a short amount of time, with no end in sight, might I add. The Last Dragonborn's existence in Skyrim, and what the player chooses to do about it, mostly consists of interferences with guilds, uncovering lost Dwemer artifacts that inadvertently make him even more tenacious and powerful, not to mention acquiring a cesspool of Daedric artifacts that are given to him if he chooses to temporarily serve a Daedric prince. The defeat of Alduin also served as the icing on the cake, securing him fame and worship amongst the people of Skyrim, with the addition of absorbing a literal aspect of Akatosh. I mean, that has got to stand for something, right? Moving on to the defeat of Marik. The defeat of Marik surely doesn't mark the end of this ambitious Dragonborn's path. Elder Scrolls players brought his title to life. They helped him reach peak performance, and that is fully displayed due to his qualifications and earlier achievements in Skyrim. The risks of serving Hermaeus Mora can't be properly calculated yet, but from what we've gathered, he grants never-ending knowledge in turn for freedom and partial enslavement. If this is the canon outcome for the Last Dragonborn, it only opens him up to more paths of enlightenment and intellectual growth, even further cementing his image of a demi-god, an invincible mortal. Tiber Septim, just like his brethren, never stepped down from a challenge, and he always kept expanding his reach into mostly everything he could, single-handedly securing Tamriel and tackling one of the most technologically advanced provinces on Mundus, Alinor. The myth of Talos and the allegiance Hjalti, Wulfarth, and Zurn formed represents the present-day image of Tiber Septim, a sophisticated but ruthless ruler. Although mischievous, Hjalti and Zurn were dependent rulers, and this was showcased due to how flourishingly well they handled the Empire's massive territorial expansion across Tamriel. Hjalti even made a huge sacrifice play for the Empire by confronting Vivec one-on-one. This may have or may have not impacted Hjalti mentally, but all we know is that he profitably made it out, procuring an armistice for the Empire. Vivec alone has obliterated many influential figures in the Elder Scrolls universe, especially Daedric princes, and as I've already stated before, with the help of Vivec's Numidium, Hjalti, the last and original member of the Talos legacy, achieves Kim, conquering Alinor and peacefully letting his mortal form fade away until his ascension to godhood. Finally, we're getting down to it. Taking into account that both Tiber Septim and the Last Dragonborn are at their peak forms, Wulfarth and Zurn included, a battle between Shezarenes of such broad experience could take hours, and maybe even days, I guess. But when you look at the aforementioned facts, Tiber Septim and Zurn would eventually succumb to the Last Dragonborn's psychological strength, combat vigor, and extensive knowledge of the Thu'um. The Last Dragonborn would have a counter to mostly everything Zurn decides to throw at him. Shouts alone can counter most schools of magic, but combat prowess would be the decisive factor in all of this. And this is exactly what Hjalti and Wulfarth excel at, turning this into a lengthy and worthy battle. Now, to sum it all up, this is an intricate case of a successor outperforming his predecessor. Just like how Hjalti managed to trap his predecessor Wolfarth into the Mantella, the Last Dragonborn was the victor of circumstance. He efficiently utilized all of the gifts granted to him throughout the timeline of Skyrim, making him a fundamental symbol of the Aedra's influence amongst Mundus and its inhabitants. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you really did, please show your support by clicking like or maybe even watching through some of my other videos. It would help a lot considering how much time it takes me to make videos like these. Have a good one.